Hello, everyone. Welcome to the best and worst of Walt Disney World, brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel and DizBoards.com. I am your host, Ryan O'Clavin, and this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the top 5 worst things that we think are happening at Pirates of the Caribbean, at the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. To join me for this discussion, because I cannot talk very well myself, is Mr. Corey Fiascanaro.
Dead men tell no tales.
I am uncomfortable, and Denny Sunderley.
Hi, everyone.
And Mr. Greg Williams.
Oh, hi.
Yes. So, we did an episode that was the best things that we thought about our top 5 things about the attraction Pirates of the Caribbean. So now we're going to tell you what we feel like are the top 5 worst things about the attraction Pirates of the Caribbean. And the first one, I feel like we kind of did talk about with Haunted Mansion, and it goes in general, but I just feel like this is another ride that suffers from this. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the percentage is, but people guests disrupting other guests.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but this seems to be one of those attractions where it is just almost the chances of you getting on a ride where you're not going to be bothered by somebody are like 1 in 5.
Right.
Like, okay, no flash photography. I don't know how many times they say it. Also, when you're in a dark room and you're using flash, I really want to tell you, you're ruining the photo, because you're going to get a photo that looks nothing like what you're taking a picture of. Okay. Also, now you're flashing and you're going to see all strings and lights you shouldn't be seeing, but whatever. People on their phones on this. Mm-hmm. Come on, man. All you got to do, iPhone, swipe down, lower that brightness all the way down, and maybe just cover it up a little bit. And if you're recording, just make sure that brightness is all the way down too, and you're not using your flash.
And on the same topic of guests disrupting other guests, I don't know if you've ever gone on with 1 or 2 other people onto a pirate's boat, and it was the entire rest of that boat was filled with a high school group.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
And they're just super loud, super obnoxious, just screaming and playing with each other
talking.
the whole time.
Come on.
Yeah.
This is the thing. I said this, you never know. Yes, this might be your millionth time on this attraction, but you never know whose first time it is on an attraction. So you should always respect the storytelling that you're doing. If you want to talk about something and point things out to people, just lean over and whisper.
Right. And you don't know, this could be their very favorite. And this is, they've been waiting years and years and years to get back on this attraction. They're finally here. And then you've got somebody who's got an iPad out who's trying to record something or take pictures. And there's great video and photography readily available on the Diz. Check that out when you get home, okay? Just enjoy and be in the moment during that attraction.
Yeah, and I am just going to point it out because there were threads started about it and conversation that one person said, well, I like to keep my phone on because my kid is afraid of that, and they're afraid of the attraction, and it helps them feel better. A lot of people jumped up and said, if your kid's afraid, you shouldn't be taking them on the attraction. I don't have kids, so I can't necessarily speak one way or another to it. I do know that my parents probably drugged me on a couple things here and there that I didn't want to go onto, and I did it without phones, and I know a lot of people bring that up too. So there's a lot of differences in. I'm not saying it's okay. It's not something I will do, but it's very hard for us.
You're not the only one there.
Yeah. But it's also just harder for us because we grew up at a different time than people are now, and it's become more socially acceptable. And back when we would come, it was something we didn't talk while we were on the ride. We would get out. And, that's when you still see it sometimes where the kids are jumping around oh, my gosh, that was awesome. Did you see that dog? He had keys in his mouth. Oh, yeah. And now people just do it right in the middle of the ride. And something I've been noticing more and more lately, it's not even the kids that are doing it. It's the adults who are assuming that their kids are too
stupid to see it.
I didn't want to say it in that very harsh words, but
whatever.
Yeah, I see it.
Carol Ann, look, he's got keys.
And it's not just during this ride or Haunted Mansion. It's it's during the fireworks too. You're watching. It's do you see that? It's Mickey Mouse. And
oh my gosh, that is a blue firework. Have you seen such a thing? And my stars.
And obviously, this is one of the things we think is worst about Pirates, but it's obviously not a knock on Pirates at all. But I just want to take the opportunity to mention this. I mean, obviously, flash photography. And I've seen people do it like a strobe light, but I don't understand why people wait an hour in line to like, and they can spend that hour talking for sure, but to get on a ride and then just like have a full blown conversation about just like random things in life, like oh my goodness, did you see what Sandra posted?
Oh yeah,
like look at this, and like
my mom.
You could have done that in the queue, you could have done that after, and why are you even looking on Instagram or Facebook, or whatever, during the ride?
Respect each other. That's all we're asking.
It's just a mindfulness of
not
others.
knocking the kids, not knocking the parents, knocking
Nope.
everybody actually, but knocking every single one of you. Okay, so I also when we're talking about bright lights, I don't care for this new photo op in here.
Nope.
Avast ye, ruddy scoundrels. See you on the other side of Davy Jones' locker.
I forget it happens every time, and every time my photo's like,
Well, and it's completely jarring, and it's super bright, and then you have a picture, and you've got lots of strangers. Like if it's just the two of you, you've got tons of strangers in your picture, and that's not really a keepsake photo because I don't know who those people are. I'm sure they're lovely, but I don't know them.
Yeah.
So,
And most of the seats too that you're probably going to be sitting in aren't even a good angle of you. So like you're just going to see like the side of your face.
look at all my double
nose
chins.
sticking
Yeah.
out.
it's 3/4 angle. It is a funky little angle that it takes a picture at. So
that's one thing that I wish Disney would do, because Universal will crop in on, like, if you're riding Forbidden Journey and you're two of you and you have two other random people on the bench, they'll crop it so it's just you two in your attraction photo.
nice.
I like stuff like that, where it's like, okay, well, we realize that you're on here with other people. You don't want these people in it. Heck, I even look at some of the attraction photos from like when I was a teenager and stuff, younger, going to local theme parks with friends, and I've got these photos with my friends. I'm like, well, I'm not friends with them anymore. So I don't care about these. Apparently, I lost all sentimentality.
Yeah, I was like, what happened to you? Were you electrocuted?
Maybe I ate a lot of paint
Burn
chips.
those emotions out of you. My thing with the photo op though too is it's not even like, not only is it not an actual good photo, it's just like, what? I'm sitting in this
Why?
weird boat in the water, but it's not very piratey. Like
Yeah.
it's not. I don't know. It feels like something that you'd be like, well, they've taken that photo since day one, and you're like, no, that's like a 2016 update or something like
Yeah.
that.
It really is something that I'm sure they got guest feedback from PhotoPass, and they said, well, one of the things we love the most and we would buy PhotoPass for is if we got our attraction photos from it, but you don't offer enough attraction photos. So then they went on that kick where now Haunted Mansion was the 13th, I think, and so they just went through and like, where can we put photos in?
Yeah.
Space Mountain, there's one turn where we can put you in a photo right at the beginning.
Right at the
Yeah.
beginning. So
Yeah.
nobody's
Yeah.
even making a fun face yet because you haven't done anything.
Like you can compare it to a good one. Like I think Dinosaur's a really good one.
I do agree. I think Dinosaur's great.
When
It
the
has
guy
the
jumps
thing,
out at
it's
you,
like-
then it takes it. Yeah.
Well, so on the tune of Disney selling stuff, I think we've agreed that we don't care for how this attraction exits you into a gift shop, and it's not the gift shop itself. It's just the fact that Craig was saying that, and I agree, because that's the first thing I thought is the second you exit, there's stuff on either side before you're even out of the hallway that everyone stops dead in their tracks, and you're like, oh, excuse me, and then you're just like collapsing over each other, and so many people are trying to get out of this ride at once because it's one boat after another. It's just this backup that then becomes this like stressful situation where you're like, I just can't get out. Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay with a gift shop exit, but you have to provide at least one clear route that you can get to the end with for people who aren't interested in
It's like a
buying
maze,
anything.
this
Yeah,
one.
and it's a maze. There are so many shelves in there. I almost feel like I don't have a lot of experiences with ECVs or wheelchairs, but I feel like they find a way to trick people in them to come in the store and then get stuck, and then guests getting off the ride then get stuck behind them because they got in there and it was too tight and they got stuck. It's a jumbled mess in there, and it's a shame because there is some, there's cool merchandise in there from time to time. Every now and then we go through our pirate moods where it's like, yeah, I like pirates, I want something pirates related, but it's like,
being a little kid, you're like, oh, a sword. Yeah. I want a
Well,
sword.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Absolutely.
They're cool Pirates of the Caribbean shirts in there that you're not going to find anywhere else. It's such a cool, very extensive, large store. But yes, as soon as you come off of the ride, there's a bit of a pinch point there, a log jam that happens.
and if it's raining outside, That doesn't stop people from coming into the attraction still and riding and exiting. And then you have everyone who's seeking refuge from the weather. Yeah. There's no wins. No wins.
So we'll talk about this next one too.
Will
I don't. Well, I'm going to say that I don't know that I agree, but I understand where this one is coming from. So the length in the scale was in 2. I don't know if it was in yours, Denny, but it was in Corey and Craig. Like you guys have said, it's not. But here's why. I mean, I try not to compare this to the Disneyland one, but Corey made a good point, and it's true. But I would know no difference if I had never gone onto the Disneyland version. So I don't know that I agree with the length and scale comment being on this one, because I had only ever ridden Pirates. For those of you who don't know, is a lot longer. In Disneyland, there's a whole nother scene that kind of shows it. When I went on it, I was like, oh, this is where the plot for the first movie came from, with the pirates and the gold and the skeleton.
Then I will say on mine, I have never really enjoyed the scale in here. And once I did see Disneyland, it went even bigger. But for me, like, I get on It's a Small World, and maybe because it is so bright in there, I feel like it's massive. And these rooms are giant, and you can see all the way up to the ceiling. With Pirates of the Caribbean, I've always found it to be claustrophobic, and especially in some areas more than others. But even in a lot of the once you get into the main portion of the ride and you're going past the mayor getting dunked and you're going past Red and all that, even that, to me, it feels very claustrophobic for a village when I should be out and it should be wide and expansive. So that's, and then going on what you pointed out, once I did Disneyland, there are certain portions where it's the same, but like the last scene, where the man's sleeping with the pigs and stuff, like, maybe it's just my eyes playing tricks on me, but that scene is definitely larger in Disneyland. It's a lot wider. It feels taller as well too. Like there's just little extra elements in there. So, and yeah, for me, Pirates, with the length, I will say more of that. It wasn't as much of an issue for me before, but now that it's back when the days when you used to only wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get on the attraction, I felt like the length of the ride justified that little of a wait. But now when I see it 45 minutes, especially on party nights, there's no justification.
Wait, you think it's too short?
Yeah.
Interesting, because I always think of it as a long ride.
Yeah.
So that's just that's an interesting your perception of the ride like that. So you made a point too earlier.
Yeah. So for me, Pirates of the Caribbean is my favorite ride in Walt Disney World. It's also my favorite ride in Disneyland. But the Disneyland one, I think, is almost twice as good. As far as the entry scene when you're in the caves. Yeah. And in Walt Disney World, it like Craig was mentioning, it feels a lot smaller, whereas in the Disneyland version, not only is it
you're going through caverns, I guess.
3 times as long. It felt cavernous and adventurous and just way more awesome. And there was way more to it, and there was way more, you could tell, passion put into those caves and all those extra scenes that were going on in there, obviously, as well. As far as the pirate town, I don't have a huge difference between our pirate town and theirs. There are some, but that part doesn't bother me. But then the ride ends even differently in our version to theirs. The Walt Disney World version, I feel like it ends so abruptly right after the dog scene, and you have Jack there too, but it ends so abruptly. Whereas the Disneyland version, you're leaving Tortuga, you're leaving the pirate town, and then you're seeing this gun shootout happen where these pirates are fighting against each other, and you're getting out of there as fast as you can, and you make it out safely, and then you're in this more quiet villagey area, and you still have a little bit more time with the water before you finally get off. I don't think they thought of the immersiveness of that, because ours does end very abruptly comparative to land.
Well, ours arguably doesn't have a story versus Disneyland.
Right, yeah, I was going to say theirs is a complete telling of a story.
Yeah. And ours is just, we know when we opened this park that people were ticked off that they couldn't find Pirates of the Caribbean, so we added a greatest hits version on it, but I'll put it in this way. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is a concept album. You can take a couple songs and say this is the greatest hits, but then you miss out on the story.
Okay.
And to me, that's what Pirates of the Caribbean is.
It's a great way to put it.
I mean, that's when I was a kid, even being a little kid, I don't understand why they were skeletons. Like, why were they skeletons in the beginning? What was that story all about? You know, it's I didn't know any of that stuff, and I just thought of it as, oh, I'm just seeing the adventures of a pirate, you know, sort of a thing. Like Craig just said, greatest hits. But, well, with that, too, I saved this one for the end because I know we're a little split on it. But updates and changes is what I wrote as one of the worst things. Now, I have this here because some of us like some of the updates. Some of us don't like some of those same updates and vice versa. But I think in general, this is a really difficult attraction for them to ever update and change. I do agree that some of the updates need to happen in terms of being like, oh, okay, well, we portrayed something very offensive without, you know, because it was a different time and different whatever. But it's just one of those rides where no matter what you change, it's going to be a stir and it's going to ruin somebody's childhood somehow or another. But I'm going to say a positive thing here, and I believe Denny also agrees with me here. I actually don't mind the inclusion of Jack Sparrow into the story.
Yep.
And I remember not really even knowing he was going to be in there when I first moved here in 2007 because the movies had started coming out in 2003. And so I think 2003 was the last time I was at Disney World before I moved. No, 2005 maybe, but I don't know when they added Jack Sparrow into the attraction. So, and then I moved here in 2007 and I was like, oh, that animatronic looks so good. That looks just like Jack Sparrow. And because our Pirates doesn't have that very clear storyline, I was like, oh, there's actually a thread of a story in here now I'm following. Yeah. You know, where Jack's got this treasure map and everyone's looking for him and that's kind of the whole thing. And then at the end, and I'm like, oh, so that, for me, that was the first time where I was like, I feel like there's a bigger story here. But that's the one I like. I, on the other hand, do not care for the red scene. And it has nothing to do with, I don't think they should have changed the scene or anything like that. It's just something about the voice they picked.
Send him in, Sir Davy Jones. It's the rum they want. Drink up me hearties.
It has this weird effect where I don't know. I'm fine with the lady pirate and everything. It's just her voice I don't like.
Yeah, I'm just going to butt in here real quick, and then I'll say my piece on it, and then let everyone else talk. I agree with you on the voice of Red. I think I talked about it on another show at one point. I listened to a podcast where the voice actor who redid Red's dialogue, she was so proud that she's like, oh yeah, and I just got to do this and it was so cool riding through and hearing my voice. And I'm like, oh, that's a shame because it is not good. It doesn't fit. It is definitely a square peg into a round hole in terms of it. But that's also where I have to put my foot down on Jack Sparrow and even updated Red. To me, the characters just don't mesh with the environment. The characters are all whimsical. They're these Mark Davis creations that are unique and distinct. And you can say the average person maybe is like, yeah, they're robots. All the robots look the same, cool robots and such. But for me as a Disney geek, it sticks out like a sore thumb when you see Jack Sparrow clashed up against these characters. Do
you think it's because because of the animatronic? He's so so much more advanced than
fluid. Stylistically different, fluid, everything. It's like putting Ricky Martin in a room full of ugly people.
Oh my god, I would be so happy to be one of those ugly people.
And I don't want to be rude with that, but it's you have
everyone's ugly when Ricky's around.
You have this smooth talking, good looking Latin man come in, and I imagine him sweeping across the floor, and then everyone else is just shoveling pig dung and everything else, and that to me is how Jack sticks out in this. It's just doesn't fit to me.
Even though what you're saying,
they try to blend that in with the movies, and Jack stands out in the movies as well. I think it works in there. To me, it doesn't work as well on the ride.
I can see what you're saying from a technical standpoint too. For specifically being it's a weird thing to see this such advanced thing in something that was, I get what you're saying now.
It's not aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Perfect. What were you?
So for me, I will agree with Rhino. When I first saw Jack Sparrow integrated into the ride, I didn't know it was happening back in the day, and I got surprised by it, and I was excited and thought it was cool. With that being said, Pirates, again, my favorite attraction. When they were announcing that they were going to close it to do its changes, I was one of the people who was worried about it. Like, I always get worried about every time they close a classic for renovations, every time. But then I rode it, and it didn't really bother me. I thought the changes were fine. But listening to Craig talk, there's a lot of things that I really didn't think of before that I'm kind of thinking of now, of these new additions. Kind of, yeah, they're out of place, and it's not something I put together now, but definitely when I go through the ride and I'm looking at all these scenes, all these animatronics, the things that I connect the most with are the things that have been there for a long time, not necessarily the new changes, even though they don't really bother me, but it's still not what I connect with.
Yeah.
I like Jack being on the ride. I don't mind it at all. I think for people who are now, in their early 20s, they grew up with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, so that's kind of a cool thing to see and nod.
Nauseous.
Yeah,
thinking that. Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
crazy. But there is that little bit of a relationship between, the attraction. I was mentioning it earlier, the attraction informing the movies, obviously, and then the movies informing the attraction. So I like the things that they've added. I like Jack.
But
I
you
like
and I
the
have
clouds.
a thing that we're very upset about. Yeah.
Yes, unacceptable. They took the mermaid skeleton away from that first scene.
Yeah.
So after you go through the waterfall, there's that first scene on the left, and a mermaid skeleton was there, and they would even make the water bubble
I miss the
and
water
stir.
bubble. Yeah, and the colors would be in the water.
Yes, they took
Yeah.
the references to the mermaids out, which really makes me sad.
Yeah, that was a sad one. I remember that debuted when I just first started with the Diz, and I remember riding it like 6 times to try to get a perfect shot of it on each side. So I know we have video out there somewhere of it if you've never seen it before, and hopefully I found it and put it in this episode
I'm
right
sure
at
you
that
did.
time.
That's how
Hopefully
good you
I
are.
did, but that was a cool little addition. But maybe it's because the Mermaid movie didn't really go that well.
I know, but it's weird because they still have Blackbeard's voice in the attraction, and that's why I'm like, and when it was there, I was like, this makes so much sense. Pirates, mermaids,
does.
like it's all fantastical, and they're looking for this cursed gold and, all this stuff. And that's why it was kind of like, it took it away, but nothing went there. And so I was like, it removed this kind of, it always feels a little empty there now
It
for
is
me.
empty.
But those are our things. That's our group's decision on what we felt like that we all agree on that are some of the top 5 worst things about Pirates of the Caribbean. And again, that was the length and scale, the updates and changes, exiting into the gift shop, the photo op, and disruptive guests. Those disruptive guests out there, us, we've all been them. Just remember, we're all in this together. God, I just said the High School
Hey,
Musical
could we
song.
sing now?
Yeah, so just let's all remember, treat each other with respect so we can all have that amazing ride through at the same time. But thank you, everybody, for having this discussion with me. Thank you, everyone out there, for watching or listening. If you are watching on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you like what you see, you'll get, if you click the bell, you'll get notified whenever we upload more content like that. And if you don't, well, I'm sorry. We're terrible then. But thank you guys again, and we'll see you next time with another episode of The Best and Worst of Walt Disney World. Bye, everyone.